Good. So thank you for coming to our traffic council meeting for January 18th. We're going to begin the meeting. Let me just quickly see who's here. Okay, so in the way of introductions, I am David Kozis. I am the traffic council chair and the transportation coordinator from the Department of Public Works. Other voting members of traffic council are Sergeant Wade from the Traffic Bureau, Isaac Prezant, our traffic engineer from DPW, our citizen representative, Mitch Fishman, and alternate citizen rep, Jeremy Friedberg. I don't see a counselor yet.
Correct.
Okay, so we might be joined by, I would think, Counselor Downs from Ward 5 later in this meeting. We also have Danielle Delaney, our from the clerk's office, and I see Jeannie Fairley.
And Counselor Bixby's with us also.
Okay, good. Let me just see. Okay. Counselor Martha Bixby from Ward
6.
From Ward 6. Okay, so we're going to begin with our first item of the evening. Okay, so actually I'm going to open the first two items and we're going to discuss them together. So our first item is AP 123. It's Counselor Greenberg on behalf of Jeffrey DiUglio, 9 Murphy Court, requesting an accessible parking space near or in front of 9 Murphy Court. Also opening AP 124, Jeannie Fairley, ADA coordinator, and David Kozis, transportation coordinator, on behalf of Roger Malloy, requesting an accessible parking space at or near 5 Murphy Court. So both of these items were heard by the Commission on Disability back last week on January 8th. They recommended approval for both of them. I'm going to go through a presentation for both of these items, and then afterwards, we're going to open it up for public comment, and then we'll have a discussion among the members of Traffic Council and any city councilor. Okay, so first for the first item, AP 123. This is the location of 9 Murphy Court in Nonantum. Here's a view, or actually a photo of the specific house with the driveway. I did go to measure that curb in front of the house. I wanted to highlight that it's only 22 feet between the two driveways. It's not really unusual for Murphy Court, but it is important because we do have a city ordinance on the books that you're not allowed to park within 5 feet of a driveway. So in this case, the legal parking is really only 12 feet. Otherwise, you'd be too close to one driveway or the other. And I don't know how much this is enforced on this particular street, but when you do park within 5 feet of a driveway, it is a possible $25 ticket. So I just wanted to mention that. The recommendation I have for this particular item is to take no action on it, but then to incorporate it as part of the next item. So that's my recommendation for this item, and then let's run through the next item as well, and then we'll have a discussion. So now the presentation for AP 124, which is a request for an accessible parking space right next door at 5 Murphy Court. So you can see the locations right next door. Oops. Here's a view looking to the west. You can see my cursor. This is 5 Murphy Court, and this is 9 Murphy Court, so right next to each other. And then this is a seafood restaurant right on the corner of Adams Street. So 5 Murphy Court, notice that there is no driveway. 9 Murphy Court, there is a driveway, no driveway for 5 Murphy Court, and there's a longer area to be able to park. Okay, we see this sign right here. It's a sign that says no parking here to corner. So there's no parking all the way from Adam Street to this sign, right? But we also know that regularly people are parking there in the no parking zone. It's very common. Also, cars are parking regularly. You know, I'm pretty familiar with the street. There's often cars that are parked within 5 feet of the driveway for 9 Murphy Court. Okay, so I have part of my recommendation is to relocate this sign, the no parking here to corner sign, to move it 10 feet. So actually on the books, when you look at our official traffic and parking regulations, it says that there's no parking from Adam Street to a point 50 feet away from Adam Street. So it's supposed to be 50. This sign is supposed to be 50 feet from Adam Street, but it's actually 60 feet away. So if part of the recommendation is to move that sign, the no parking sign, so that it actually is 50 feet from Adam Street and consistent with our regulations. So that's the first part of my recommendation. Then the second part of my recommendation is to, after we move the sign, the no parking here to corner sign, to approve one accessible space, at least for now, one accessible space to be shared by the different users on the street who have valid placards, be they resident of number 5 Murphy Court, number 9 Murphy Court, or really anyone, maybe someone going to the restaurant. You know, when we put in these accessible spaces, they're not private spaces, they're to be shared among anyone who needs them. So basically that's my recommendation, to create an accessible parking space as the first space on Murphy Court when you turn off of Adam Street. And then since we're moving the sign and having one 20-foot accessible space, there's room for another 20-foot regular space, just general public space. And if everyone's parking correctly, that should mean that it would be less likely that a vehicle would park too close to the driveway at 9 Murphy Court. That's my thinking right now. So even though I'm recommending this accessible space, you know, not right in front of 9 Murphy Court, it's really only 25 feet away. So it's very close. And so that is my recommendation. We do have language to allow us to vote on this recommendation. And this is just like the technical language that we would be voting on to create this new parking layout at the beginning of Murphy Court. So with that, I am now going to open it up for public comment. So anyone who wishes to make a public comment, if you're a resident of the street, if you're one of the people who's requested this space, now would be the time to raise your hand. And then, so I see that we have Lucy Chansky. You'll have your hand raised. If you could unmute, and then Lucy, if you could just say your address for the record. I'm not sure if everyone's easily able to unmute.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay,
good.
I
I
was
see.
able to now.
Okay,
I
good.
couldn't before. I guess I don't think it's wise to have just one accessible parking space for 2 houses. One person is going to get it and the other will not. So I feel like it's not really going to serve the purpose, possibly for somebody who really needs it badly. So I don't think that's a good, and I don't know why you wouldn't put the picture, the accessible parking space where it says room for one parking space. Why not put it closer to both houses? What's the difference? It would be better for them to have it closer to both houses if there's only going to be one. But then I do have a question, because I never saw the house where Mr. Mr. Jeff, I can't think of his last name.
DiIuglio?
Yes, it's too hard to say.
Yeah,
But anyway,
it's right here.
we know who we're talking about.
This is
Okay,
the house.
yes, okay, so I'm looking at his house, and he said his driveway is too icy, but it seems to me in order to get out of his house, he has to walk through the driveway anyway. Is that where he would enter his house, where those steps are?
Yes, that's the entrance. So that is something, there's several things we need to keep in mind. First of all, if we do put an accessible space right here, it's not really a legal space, right? Because it's only 22 feet. I feel like now, sometimes if people park there, maybe it's overlooked because of the nature of the street. But if we make this an official signed space, we're sort of creating a place that we're saying is an official parking space that's not really able to be parked legally. So that's one concern. The other concern is, from what I understand, Mr. DiIuglio, the resident of this house, does not have a permanent placard, a permanent handicap or handicap placard. Right now, my understanding is it's a temporary placard, whereas the neighbor next door, who has no driveway at all, does have a permanent placard. So it's, I don't think the Traffic Council generally approves accessible spaces for people who don't have permanent placards. I don't know the nature of the disability or if it's actually permanent or not, but what I understand is right now the placard is a temporary placard. And, maybe it is possible to be able to share the space, at least for now, to see how it goes. If that's not acceptable, other members of Traffic Council have the ability to, they'll weigh in after we hear the rest of the public comment. And then we can have a discussion if we should have one accessible space or two. So that will be part of the discussion.
Okay,
Did that answer all the questions you had, Lucy?
No, I have another comment. He presented to the COD letters from, I believe, 2 different doctors saying that he should have a permanent placard and that his condition has changed recently, and that they both recommended that he have an accessible parking space, and they presented information about his condition that requires it. You probably haven't seen that. So he really seems to need it. He also probably has to figure out how to get him a permanent placard. And I think he's very qualified to have a permanent, in my opinion anyway, qualified to have a permanent accessible placard. I just think it's going to create a lot of animosity between 2 people who are both going to need the space and not really solve the problem of the other. So my comment is, I really believe that there should be 2 spaces.
Thank you, Lucy. The other thing that I forgot to mention is that we do have a Traffic Council policy that was written up back in 2008, actually, and updated in 2017. It's a policy about what we look at when we vote to take away a public parking space and turn it into an accessible parking space or handicap parking space. And so, the first thing we look at is to make sure that the person who's requesting it has a vehicle and a valid placard. We look at the route of travel and we look to see, is there a garage? Is there a driveway? Is there some reason that is some strong reason why it's easier or better for the resident to not park in their driveway? Is it closer to park on the street? Is it, is the driveway too much of a slope or something like that? We need to, before we go and, remove a public space, we need to make sure that there aren't any other options, right? Obviously, there's no other option for 5 Murphy Court because there is no driveway. 9 Murphy Court does have a driveway. It looks like 2 vehicles could park in the driveway, so maybe we could, find out a little bit more about why it's, more convenient. It's not even a question of convenience, but why is it needed to park on the street rather than off the street in their own driveway? So maybe Mr. Diaglio, when we get to you, you'd be able to share some information. But the next person who had their hand up is Terry Sorrow. If you could unmute and just say your address, please. And Terry, I'm not sure if you can unmute. I think people are having difficulty unmuting for some reason today.
Yeah, it's not unmuted. I'd rather, could I pass on to Jeff first and then comment
Yes.
after Jeff? Thank
Yeah,
you.
that might make sense. Jeffrey, do you
Yep.
still want to make a comment?
I cannot unmute.
Okay, you did unmute. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. I wanted to just mention one thing. I was very happy with your first conclusion after I heard from Mr. Malloy at number 5 that you had come and measured the space in front of my street, in front of my house, rather. The reason I have asked for this space is actually it is safer for me if you could show the picture to go right down my steps and hang to the right where those garbage and recycling receptacles are. There is a fence there and a railing where I can then just walk straight down and get in, even put things in on the side of my car on the right side and walk in the level street. I don't know if you can see, but there are 2 gutters that hang right down from my house at 9 Murphy Court, right onto the driveway. And I have spoken with an excavator. And in order to get that water from not flowing all over the driveway in the winter, it would cost me about $17,000 to have the driveway torn up, to have 2 trenches dug under the driveway so that the water could carry down this driveway under the ground. So it's for me really a matter of not wanting to fall. I am also perfect. My condition has deteriorated since I asked for the plaque way back in August. I am a part-time teacher still at Curry College in Milton, Mass, where I have been on the English department staff for 39 years. And one of my goals is to be able to continue to be independent and try to work here. So backing up from this driveway can be very tricky if, as you said, Mr. Kozis, there is a car jutting into my driveway. The 5-6 feet rule is never observed. There have been often pickup trucks with their big hoods, going right into the right side of my driveway. So if I want to enter from getting back from work or shopping, I have to make a left and then try to make a right to get around it so that I don't bang or hit that vehicle that's parked illegally. So I'm sure I can tell you know this street very well from what you said. I would be happy to share the spot that you proposed to start with, to see if Mr. Malloy and I can negotiate times. I don't drive all the time, but I am aware that I think I probably, and this is not to lessen Mr. Malloy's petition, but I think I drive probably more than he does. Secondly, it's really the fear of falling. Okay. I took 3 falls outside of my driveway, right on the street behind that white car once, then on the sidewalk right in front of the house at the end, and then on the left of the house on the next driveway that's abutting the next house. So this was all last August. And my condition, that's why I asked for the letters. I originally didn't want to wimp out and ask for just a year. I wanted to see if I could be better in 6 months. So the doctor, Martin Solomon, who had been my physician for almost 35 years, said, yes, I'll give you a 6-month plaque, I was hopeful. I wish I were not requesting any of this. I wish I had been, recovering as I thought I would be last summer and fall, where last summer and fall became extremely challenging, as it is now. Tonight, I got back from doing business with Toyota of Watertown, and the whole driveway, everything is iced up, and I had to park eventually further down the street and take my walker down the sidewalk. And what I do is I use my walker to get up on the driveway and then go right up the railings to the left black railing, and there's actually a new railing that's white that was installed at the bottom of the stairs. So I'm very happy if your proposal that you said, Mr. David Kouzes, would be acceptable for me. I'm a reasonable person. I'm not going to get in an argument with Mr. Malloy if he wants that space. It's basically, I want this mostly for the winter months. But the the police chief gave me this winter a reasonable accommodation that I requested this in December, and it's been enormously helpful. Once it becomes April, or when the snow and ice are gone, then I can park anywhere on Murphy Court, and hopefully I'll be able to walk further. But it would be really helpful to have it during the winter months when the parking ban is on the street. So I have been using my temporary placard. I have an appointment with my physician soon to ask about getting a longer term one. As I understand, I'm only 69 years old. I never imagined I'd be requesting. I can share it with the doctor said. I have a severe neuropathy in my feet, which has allowed me now not to have the correct balance. So my feet do not give me the feedback to balance and walk without assistance. And I was told by the head of the surgical department of neuropathy and neurology at the Faulkner Hospital that this condition is irreversible. It will never get better. It will only get worse. So that's the reason why I petitioned and asked, but I was very grateful that the city was even willing to consider this, knowing it's a bit of an unusual request. But whatever you decide, I understand. The law is the law. I'm an English teacher, and I've learned how to make sure my students understand that things that have to be done in a certain way are done. So I do appreciate your coming and measuring. I never realized that rule. I have a Toyota Corolla, but it doesn't matter. It's a small car, but other bigger cars, I understand, could use that space too. And my intention was never to ask for it only for myself. I just thought putting it in front of my house might be convenient. It wouldn't block out other cars. But my in front of my house, I'm sure you know, is often cars are parked there for days. And they're like a Rhode Island Toyota Corolla has been sitting there for 3 days. Finally, it moved when the winter storm came. It never moved the whole day. Somebody must park it there and work or live in a different part of this neighborhood. So it is very aggravating when I come home and I can't really, my only option is to turn in and be a little afraid of falling getting out of the car. But I do appreciate your listening, and any decision you make, I understand, has to be done accordance to American Disability guidelines. And I did want to thank Ginny very much for bringing this up so quickly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding one thing. And in terms of the icy driveway, I think I'm understanding that you're saying because of the water coming down this way, that maybe parts of your driveway are quite icy, but you tend to be able to walk straight down into the street, and then you'd be able to turn and walk down the street to where a parking space would be. Is that the correct understanding? And you're muted, but I think that's what you were saying.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I was trying to unmute and I couldn't unmute myself. That's correct. The
Okay.
worst of the ice is around the driveway before you get to the city sidewalk.
Okay. All right. So going back to the recommendation that we're talking about now. So again, the idea is to, because the street is very densely settled, I think it must be one of the most densely settled streets in the city, high parking demand. Maybe, so that's what part of the reason for my recommendation, to see if it works to share the space. I did, when I happened to be measuring it, I saw Mr. Malloy came out and we talked about it. He seems to be able to walk a little bit further. He seems to be willing to sort of share the space, the two of you together. So if we do decide to go ahead and approve the one space, we could, we can always come back later if we find that it's not working, and add a second space. And actually our office is just right down the street from here on Craft Street. So I promise to keep an eye on it, and sort of see how it seems to be working out. And of course, you're free to contact me or Jeannie and let us know if it's not working out. We could think about having, doing something else. But that's what I'm thinking right now. And I do see, Terry, you have your hand up. Are you able to unmute? Okay, good.
Yep, now I am. Okay, it's a problem trying to unmute, sorry.
Yeah.
So I support everything that Jeff says, and as far as the handicap, I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, Murphy Court and the cars is horrific, and I hear what Jeff is saying because we have it on Cook Street. Cars, I don't know where they come from. They're parked like 3 or 4 days, and then I called the police and they put an abandoned, and all of a sudden the car moves. And Shaky Crab with the trucks, because they have to pull in, they can't back in because it's a nightmare. So there needs to be a handicap space for Jeff. And I didn't realize that Mr. Malloy was asking for a handicap space as well, because I see him walking all the time. I didn't realize he had a car. So right now you're proposing the one handicap. So could there be, so you're saying there's not enough room for 2 handicap spaces? Because don't forget, at the corner there, there's going to be 5, that house is going to be knocked down at the corner, and there's going to be 5 units in there, even though thank God they were only going to originally put 1 parking space, but now we have 2, so that won't carry over into Murphy Court. But
So Terry, I'm not saying that there's not room for 2. There is room for 2.
so why would you not? But so why would you not?
I'm
Okay.
saying my recommendation is to start with 1, and it seems like there is an ability to share the space between the 2 owners, the residents of 5 and 9 Murphy Court. It seems like it might work out to have the 1, at least for now. If we find that 2 spaces are needed, that removes 1 more space from the public use. And
I
I'm
hear,
just
I
not
hear
sure
what you're
it's needed
saying,
yet.
Dave. I hear what you're saying, but and I know they can work it out, but I mean, say Jeff comes home, he needs the space, and Mr. Malloy is in the space, and if they both need a handicap space and have the documentation, I think there should be 2 handicap spaces on the street. That's just, and I know you said you can watch it, monitor it, but I mean, you have the documentation from the handicapped, and it's problematic when he comes home. I mean, he shouldn't have to walk down the street, or vice versa, or Mr. Malloy shouldn't have to walk down the street. And And that street is just horrific and cars are always parked there, they don't even belong there. So if there are 2 handicap spaces, at least they know that there'll be a parking space when they come home if needed. They're handicapped.
Yep,
That's just,
I understand that. Again, this is not up to me. It's, it's part of the discussion. In
Mhm.
our policy, it specifically says that the city of Newton is not legally required to provide an on-street accessible space for everybody who has a placard or a disability. It's up to us to decide what's in the interest, of everybody.
I
So
get it,
this is
I
just
get
my
it,
recommendation, and I'm starting
Right.
with my recommendation, and then I want to hear what members of the
Okay.
public say, and also the other members of traffic council.
thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Sergeant Wade.
First of all, I'm kind of neutral on 1 or 2 spaces. I was part of the COD meeting when this was discussed. I kind of went back and forth on it, but I think whatever the council agrees with, either 1 or 2 spaces would be fine. But I do agree with Lucy Chansky that those spots should be swapped, in my opinion. If the accessible space is gonna be closer to both houses, it should be on the left, and the other one should be closer to the restaurant. That's pretty much just, I really think it should be swapped. That's really all I have to say for that.
Okay. I think the reason that I put it where I did, it just feels sometimes easier that the very first space is the marked, like we would put the sign right there. The first space would be the accessible space. I'm not tied to this. This is just a recommendation. And I want to hear also what Jeannie says. If we want to have the first space as just a general space for deliveries or for someone to park, and then have the second space shown in green, the one that's, I guess, the closest one to the driveway of number 9, that would be fine too. So, Jeannie, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, in a perfect world, we'd have a little more space to have put an accessible parking space in front of number 9. And also, obviously, we do have enough space in front of number 5. I've never seen 2 accessible spaces in a row, residential. Maybe you have, David, but I have not. So because we cannot put any, really the length of a accessible space is the length of a typical accessible space in the city. So for some cities, maybe they have a much shorter space. We have 20 feet. And yes, you need the 5 and the 5 because it's a driveway on both sides of number 9. So, but my recommendation is to have, start with 1, see how it works out. And also to be the one that you just mentioned, the one closest to Jeff's, Mr. DiUlio driveway, because when he maybe doesn't need it or Mr. Malloy doesn't, we also don't have the trucks or not residents, but just customers. They won't go up that far, and most likely, and it'll be more empty, and he'll be able to get in and out of his driveway more easily. So I don't want, my recommendation is 1 for now, and the one closest to number 9's driveway. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Mr. DiUlio, did you have another comment?
Yes, thank you. I would appreciate if they were swapped, as the officer said. It would allow me to get faster into my house and back. And it would also discourage trucks or bigger cars from parking and jutting into my driveway. Because, I am hoping to get strength and gain strength. But for now, at least for the foreseeable future, having the handicap space where it says room for 1 parking space, the green, closer to my house and to Mr. Malloy's, would make it easier for me. And if I were able to drive in, say there was somebody parked there, at least I wouldn't have to worry about something jutting out, which is very common now, or it comes right up to the corner,
Mhm.
not even a foot. So I thank Ginny for also thinking of that very carefully. So I'm happy to share and see how it goes. And I don't anticipate any conflict with Mr. Malloy.
Okay. Isaac. Trying to unmute. I don't know what's going on with the unmuting today.
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Jeannie, if you had something else to say, I can wait, no problem.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I would lean towards one space for now. I'm not opposed to two in the future, but I think some of the consensus and reasonable thinking here, and sort of the support that they have for one another to try to share it is interesting, and I'd say let's give that a shot. And I would have that be closer to the driveway. I was gonna ask. I mean, I'm, as you know, David, we're sensitive to more and more signs, but part of the issue seemed to be vehicles illegally parking between the two driveways. So I'm just kind of putting it out there. I think it may be something for DPW to look into, possibly placing a no parking between driveways sign, more so in front of the home, and then that way at least it opens up some of the maneuvering if people do honor that sign. So that's just food for thought. That's not really something that the council needs to decide, because if it's already an illegal space, then we can sign it as such without language. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
support moving the space up to this green
Okay.
square.
I'm just thinking, if we do that, do you think we'll need two signs to sort of indicate the beginning of the accessible space and the end
Yeah.
of the accessible space? Just because if we only have one, 5 feet from the driveway, I hope that, that there's going to be 20 feet available in that space, or maybe we'd have to mark it out in some way.
Yeah, I would support two signs,
Yeah.
but that's probably something we can figure out internally.
Yeah, we can figure that out later. Okay, Jeremy.
Yep. So I was inclined to support two spaces. It seemed like both the applicants, had provided what they needed to provide to, show that they could have a space each. But if they're okay with sharing, I guess I'm okay with that too. As far as the configuration of if there's only gonna be one space, I'd also like to see them swapped, as Sergeant Wade suggested. And the other thing, I think I heard Mr. DeLuglio mention that this is more of a winter problem, so maybe we could do, just to help move things up, do it as a trial and save 3 weeks and get it installed sooner. Also might be just more practical to have it stay on the agenda as a trial as well.
Okay. That's a good thought. Counselor Downs.
So part of the problem is that you can't unmute yourself. I think that has to do with last night's meeting more than tonight's meeting. That was all I was really going to say. I think Mr. Freudberg's suggestion is spot on. And I would support both of them.
Okay. When you say you would support both of them, what do you mean?
So the trial, as well as what Sergeant Wade suggested about the switching of the spaces, that also, as I understand it from Mr. DeLuglio, allows him to block his own driveway if someone is jetting into the handicap parking space, because it's his own driveway, one, and two, he you know, he says he sometimes does that anyway when he needs his parking spot, which I remember from the council, the Disabilities Commission meeting. So, and I'm happy to start with one, and then we can switch to two if that's immediately, if that's proves to be needed.
Yeah, and that probably makes even a stronger case to do a trial so that we could actually see what happens, and then we're forced to come back and talk about it and see if the one space is sufficient. Of course, the very people that install the signs are the people that handle the snow removal, and with the weather being so cold, I'm not sure if we do approve a trial, I'm not sure how many days it would take to be able to get the sign, approved by DigSafe, and then, become warm enough to install the sign. But it would, in any event, it would be faster if we approve it as a trial. We don't have to wait 20 days. If it's not a trial, we are required to wait 20 days, see if there's any appeals. And then if there isn't an appeal, then we would be able to install the sign. So maybe it makes sense to approve this as a trial, the one space, and swapping the space so that the accessible space would be in the area shown in green closer to the driveway. Maybe that's where we're headed right now. Sergeant Wade.
I'd just like to give two quick cautions. If you and Isaac are talking about two signs, that I don't know if you're talking about the same signs indicating one spot, that's going to confuse people. They're going to think you're talking about two accessible spaces. And the second thing that just came up is I would caution petitioner to not park within 5 feet of his driveway, whether there's an accessible spot there or not, because the PCOs, the parking control, they don't run plays to see that he lives there. They can and do ticket people for parking within 5 feet of the driveway, whether it's theirs or not. So, and the original reason I put my hand up is I'm going to put this on their radar to monitor Murphy Court for the next 2 to 3 weeks to start ticketing illegally parked cars, especially those within, too close to the intersection. So they will see more tickets down there for illegal parking.
Okay.
If I can just real quick. So the
Yes,
two
I-
sign accessible space formats usually with the arrows. That's how we've done it in the past and how I see neighboring communities do it. But fair point.
Okay. Mitch, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was trying to unmute for about 10 minutes, but I finally did it. Yeah, I mean, I think the one space, moving it up to the front. I liked Isaac's, no parking signs in front of the house. I thought that was good. And hopefully the two people at 5 and 9 can work it out.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about putting in signs that say no parking between driveways at this, I think the fact is if you put it in front of number 9, it's the same thing on like many of the spaces on the street. Many of the spaces on the street really are not wide enough to allow legal parking. I just, like at the beginning, I just think because of the nature of the street, even though they could be cited, usually they're not. So I don't know. Anyway, it's not something the traffic council would be voting on whether or not to put in no parking between driveway signs. I would be hesitant to do that. Jeannie. Just waiting for the unmute to happen. Okay, you got it.
Yeah, that last comment about the no parking between driveways, true, we can't draw an accessible space there, nor an official drawing of a parking space, because we don't have, as you said, 29 or 22, I mean, however many feet we need. Anyway, also, as you might have heard, I requested a reasonable accommodation for Ms. DiUlio for the winter because of that driveway situation. He doesn't always want to park in his driveway because of the slippery driveway, so he is parking overnight sometimes right in front of his house. And he has a small car, and he's most likely 5 feet away from his own driveway, and the other one. And I'm just worried that that will just create more issues and less parking for the residents, even if I guess some of them might be parking too close to his driveway and the next driveway. But please, let's not, I would like not you to put that together at this point, maybe to observe, as Sergeant Wade said, to see what's going on the street, even with this one accessible parking space. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. DiUlio.
Okay, I appreciate what you just said, Ginny, because I sometimes park right in front of my house. And that's, very convenient, and I think I do probably follow the law. It's just a Corolla sedan. So I would hate to be ticketed this winter since I've been doing that. I try to do that whenever I can. And of course, I display the placard, visibly where it's supposed to be, so any parking officer or policeman would know that I can park there. And every snowstorm, I have had somebody move the car into the driveway for me.
Yeah.
To get it off the street so that the street can be plowed, where I can observe a lot of these cars that are down near the Shaking Crab and in front of that apartment building are never moved. So I just appreciate, I am willing to compromise and take one space. I'm not being greedy. I understand that parking is very difficult. There's a high demand for a very small number of spaces on this street. That probably my driveway was once where a carriage or a coach was parked 100 years ago, since these houses were moved here in the 1890s, as I've understood. Anyway, I'm very pleased, Mr. Kozis and Ginny, for your support and for the other people. It would make sense. I will make sure that I don't park in front of my own driveway, if at all possible. But sometimes it's necessary if there's no other place. So I will follow the law as closely and carefully as I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any last comments from the public? All right, I think I'd like to make a motion to hold this item for a trial and to not put any no parking between driveway signs, but to add one accessible parking space in the area shown in green on this slide, the one that's the closest to the driveway of number 9. So that would be an accessible space located 70 feet west of Adam Street and 20 feet westerly. So that's my motion to hold this item for a trial. We'll come back later on in the winter or in the spring to see how it went, and we could vote to either change something or to make it permanent. Are there any thoughts on that motion? Okay. Seeing none, should we go for a vote? I think so. Danielle, can you call the roll for this item, please?
Sure. Are you going to take still a vote of no action necessary on AP 123?
Yeah, we will do that
Okay.
for this.
All right, let's take a motion for AP 123 for no action necessary.
Okay.
Mr.
Madam-
Kostis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Hi, I was just gonna say to make sure all 5 members are unmuted.
yeah, Sergeant Wade, Sergeant Wade,
There we go. Aye.
let's see, Mr. Fishman
Aye.
and Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Okay, that's 5-0. I'll take a vote now on AP 124 to be held. Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Sergeant Wade. He keeps going to mute. Sergeant Wade,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you gotta just stay unmuted.
Yeah, I got
Sergeant
it.
Wade.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Okay, that's held 5-0.
Okay, let me just write something down real quick. Okay, so we have now voted to hold this item as a trial, meaning we do not need to wait 20 days. So as soon as the crew could, get approval from DigSafe to install the sign at that location, and then when the weather is such that they can install the sign, you will see the new actually, and part of the trial is to move the no parking sign 10 feet over toward Adam Street, right? So those two changes will be made as part of this trial as soon as possible. All right. So that concludes these two items. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the next item. Okay, so our next item is TC 6423. Okay, I'm just trying to move something on my screen. Okay, so our next item, TC 6423. Isaac Prezant, City Transportation Engineer, requesting to approve a stop sign at the Station Avenue northbound approach to Lake Avenue. So here's the location in Newton Highlands, the end of Station Avenue. Here's a view. You see it's a T intersection. There's no stop sign there now. We often...
No, I'm just turning the heat down.
Okay. We often get this type of request for
Too
a
fucking
stop
hot.
sign at a T intersection. So when we get these, we use the same slide that we look for guidance. There's no official warrants for when to approve a stop sign at a T intersection. It is an implied stop. You're supposed to be making a stop when you come to this point. It's not required to add a stop sign here, but we could add a stop sign. And, almost every month we do get a request like this. Traffic Council does tend to support putting in stop signs at locations like this because we do view it as a small safety benefit. It clarifies who has the right of way. And so the recommendation is to approve the stop sign at this location. We have the language to allow us to move forward with that recommendation. And that is that's the extent of the presentation for this item. Are there any comments from the public? Councillor Bixby. And let's wait for a moment to be able to unmute. Good.
There we go, I think. I just wanted to speak on behalf of this item. I believe on behalf of all the Ward 6 councilors, this seems like a great spot, right near the T. And, I believe actually there's a crosswalk there now. It wasn't in the screenshot from Google Maps, but, knowing that kids use that to get to and from, the T and the 59 bus stop and Newton Highlands, Lincoln Street area, I think this is a good spot. So I support it.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, so I'll like to make a motion to approve the stop sign. We're approving the language shown on this slide on page 21 to add the stop sign on Station Avenue northbound at Lake Avenue. That would be in our draft TPRs, in our TPRs that we all have, would be TPR 922. So that's my motion to approve the language of TPR 922 for TC 6423 to add the stop sign. Any comments? Seeing none. Danielle, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Sergeant Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
I,
and Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0 TPR 922.
Great. Our next item is TC 124. This is Counselors Downs, Lucas, and Mickley requesting to add a 20-mile-per-hour safety zone on Lowell Avenue from Elmwood Park to Claflin Park. Okay, so this is a request for a safety zone. This is what the safety zone signs look like. We've started to, in the last year or two, add safety zones in different places around the city. This is a new, it's a new program that MassDOT approved. It's the only way that regulatory speed limit signs could be added by municipalities. Otherwise, MassDOT approves speed limits. Safety zones are not to be used in place of school zones. There's certain land uses that are required, needs to be near. In this case, you'll see on the next slide that this proposed safety zone is near 2 parks, near a daycare, near a high school. And also it's required to be at least 1/4 of a mile in length. So over the past year or two, we've now approved, I think, 15 safety zones. So we regularly now have them on our traffic council agenda. And we're starting to see these signs more and more around the city. So this map I sort of turned on its side. We're not used to seeing it this way with north sort of pointing to the right, but it's the way that I was able to fit this on this slide. We have Elmwood Park to the north, Claflin Park to the south, the high school in between, and we also have a daycare in between. So the recommended safety zone would extend from the beginning of Elmwood Park all the way down to the beginning of Claflin Park. So that is our proposed safety zone. So when you're driving down the street or walking, you see this 30-mile-an-hour sign. That would probably be the location that we would replace that sign, and it would no longer be a 30-mile-an-hour zone on Lowell Avenue. It would be 20-mile-an-hour safety zone. And then headed southbound in the opposite direction, this is Elmwood Park. And this sort of shows our new traffic calming right there. We would have a sign posted right about there, probably. That would be the beginning of the safety zone in the southbound direction. So our recommendation is to approve the request to add the safety zone. And here is the location that would be on Lowell Avenue, basically between the 2 parks. And we would need to wait, if this is approved, and to see if there's an appeal, a 20-day period that brings us to February 7th. If there's no appeal by February 7th, we should be able to install those signs. That's the presentation. I already see some hands up. Mitch, you're the first one.
oh, so, I mean, I support this, but I just wondered the lower safety zone closer to Newtonville, that looks like, a good sign, and it begins, people see it. The other one's sort of in the middle of the block, the prior slide you had, David.
I'm
And
trying to go backwards.
no,
I don't know why this is not working.
I'm sorry. Well, anyway, while you're looking for it, so that's in the middle of the block, and I was just thinking, people who are traveling 30 all of a sudden see that. I don't think you want to move it, but is there some way of warning people that the safety zone is coming, or is that not appropriate?
we don't have signs that say safety zone ahead. I think that they're pretty big noticeable signs.
Right,
Um,
yeah, that one. So,
so you're talking about this?
yeah,
This
Yeah.
is really, this is on a utility pole, very, very close to the beginning of the park. I mean, it's not really up to traffic council to vote on exactly where the signs go. And maybe shouldn't even shown this slide. We have our traffic superintendent who has 25 years of experience deciding exactly where the signs would go. So
I guess my
maybe
question would,
forgets that you saw this slide. But the point is that there will be a sign like
my
this
question would
near the
be,
beginning of the park.
is there a 30-mile sign close by or not, or any signs at all? Or is that the first time you see a speed limit sign on that street?
Not sure.
Okay, I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's, if there is a sign, then, it's a little bit of a confusion. If there isn't, then, again, you don't warn people, but, yeah, there's
But we
probably.
definitely would not have the sign that says speed limit 30 because this is probably 10 or 20 feet into the beginning of the new safety zone.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I was wordy. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Counselor Downs.
Thank you. I was just going to explain, we docketed this. We have a safety zone on the other side of the high school on Walnut Street, going from the village center down to past the high school, so that it's just easier for people to recognize they're about to enter a very a place with a lot of vulnerable road users. And it just made sense to me and the Ward 2 counselors. I believe Susan Albright is also supportive, but didn't sign up in time. That we put a parallel on the other side, because students come in from both sides. And I think it's important to keep our kids safe, so that's why that was there.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Jane, we just need to know your address. Jane Hanser.
Yes, 40 Cedar Street.
And then, did you have a comment?
Yes. I think there's a lot of support for this, so I don't know how much I'm going to add to the conversation, but I do want to add the importance of the safety zone for the new Cal that will be opening. And I know that one of the reasons why it was decided to keep the senior center there was because of its walkability. And it is really important to make it safe for seniors to be able to walk to New Cal. And I even have had a friend of mine who's a senior, as am I, who is told me that she's very anxious to be able to walk to New Cal and in fact go to the park and stop in the park for a while and then continue and rest and then continue on to New Cal. So having a safety zone there is going to be extremely important to just base the fact that New Cal is there. And we also have, the whole concept of the village center is having Austin Street and Trio. We're trying to encourage people to be walking more and driving less, and seniors to downsize in those locations. So it would be very nice to be able to offer them this safety zone and make it safer for them to walk around. That's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane. Any other comments? Counselor Downs.
To Mr. Fishman's comment, there is no speed limit sign. I just checked it on Google Maps, Street View. There is no speed limit sign coming northbound on Lowell Avenue until that one that Mr. Kozis pointed out would be where you would change from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour. So the default, until you can see that sign and you have to go over a hill before you get there, is 25.
Thanks a lot.
Very good. Okay, I don't see any other hands. So I would like to make a motion to approve this item. This would be TPR 923, approving the safety zone as shown on this slide, page 28. So motion to approve TPR 923 for TC 124. Any
Okay.
last comments?
Oh. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Danielle, can you call the roll?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant. Oh, hold
He
on.
must have unmuted.
He's waving. Mr. Prezant,
Aye, thanks.
Sergeant Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
and Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 5-0 TPR 923.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so sometime after February 7th, assuming no appeal, we will install those signs. Our next item is TC 224. This is David Kozis, Transportation Coordinator, and Isaac Prezant, Traffic Engineer, requesting to make changes to the TPR for the following two dead-end segments of the Commonwealth Avenue carriageway between Robin Hood Street and Rowe Street, and between Arapahoe Road and Windermere Road. Two-way traffic circulation will officially be permitted and parking will be restricted on one side of these two segments. Okay, so we're talking about two different segments of the carriageway. Here's the first one. This is sort of over that bridge, over the Mass Pike Bridge, when you're getting toward Auburndale. And then the other segment is just past Route 16, Washington Street, between Arapahoe Road and Windermere Road. Okay, so here's a photo of the first one. This is at Rowe Street. This is looking to the east. So that's right here, looking down this way. So this is an area that so it officially is a one-way street. So when you're entering Rowe Street, entering from Rowe Street, you're basically driving in the wrong direction because you're driving in the opposite direction of the one-way right now. This is where a lot of cars, you can see, we don't have nearly this many cars, I don't think, anymore. There used to be a lot of cars that parked there. I think that many of them were for the express bus. So that is this location. And then the other location that we're talking about is when you pass Route 16, you're on Commonwealth Avenue. This is the carriageway portion. It's blocked off. So the only way to enter is at Arapahoe Road. So I put this slide in. So there's two different sections of our traffic and parking regulations that we need to think about. One of them is just the parking regulations. And then the other section of the TPR is the one-way section of the section that lists all the one-way streets. So after we docketed the item, we looked to see what does it say about the parking regulations on the carriageway. And so we saw that, on Commonwealth Avenue, well, so right here it says Commonwealth Avenue, parking is prohibited all days. It says North Drive. So that's how we refer to the carriageway, Commonwealth Avenue North Drive. So basically this is saying that parking is prohibited on the south side of the carriageway, the entire length, with one exception over by Irving Street. So we saw that parking is already officially restricted on the whole south side of both of these two segments, right? We don't really need to change anything in the traffic and parking regulations. It's already there, right? So even though we don't have signs that are posted that restrict parking on this side right here, we could just go ahead and post the signs. It's on the books. We just wanted to have this discussion before we went and posted the signs, but we don't need to vote to change anything, right? Hold on one second. The other section of the TPR deals with one-way streets. Okay, so when we look at the carriageway, it specifically says that the carriageway is a one-way street from Beaumont Avenue all the way to 165 feet east of Windermere. So that first block between, that we talked about between Windermere and Arapahoe is actually already included as officially a one-way street. But then the second thing, it says number 6 here, it's a one-way from Windermere Road all the way to Ash Street. So that is the one thing that we actually do need to change, because we need to make it the two-way street. I don't know why my Zoom isn't working in the normal way. We need to make it a two-way street right here along this section, and that's what this language does. We are removing number 6 right here in the red and replacing it with in green number 6 and 7, right? So that's just the technical language to make it officially a two-way street. Okay, I guess this is a complicated maybe, or maybe I didn't explain it that well, but I'm happy to take any questions if there's some confusion in how I presented this. I see Jesse, you have your hand up.
So my name is Jesse Corey. I live at 64 Oak Cliff Road in Newtonville, and I have several comments about this one. So as you showed in the photo of at Rose Street. So the photo does not show the do not enter except bicycle signs that are posted currently, but there are do not enter except bicycle signs posted in that spot right now. And this picture was taken before those signs were posted. And also on this block, there are actually cars parked on both sides. So I prefer that to keep parking allowed on both sides, since people like to park in this area to use the express bus, and I don't want this area to lose parking. And also for those contraflow bike lanes that were striped on the carriage lane last year.
So can I just
2 years ago and last year.
Jesse, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? Yeah. So this picture I just took off of Zoom, off of Google Maps. You're saying that there is a sign here right now that says "Do not enter except bicycles."
Yes.
All right. So that means all the cars that are parked here illegally got there. They went through a sign that said "Do not enter."
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to change to make it officially, legal to be able to park here.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So sorry for interrupting you. You can continue.
But the last thing I was going to say is that when the two-way bike travel was added on the carriage lane, that even these two segments that were docketed show as if what's striped shows as if it's one way except bicycles. And so after this is approved, and assuming there's no appeal, then those double yellow lines and bike lane symbols will have to either be scraped off or blacked out.
Okay, thank you. So you're correct. We have invited two-way bicycle travel on the carriageway. The bicyclists are invited to continue in the opposite direction of traffic, right? So I think that that's another reason for not wanting to have cars parked all through here. This is where we are wanting to have bicycles. This would now become a two-way segment, right? So we need to have room for cars to drive eastbound and then turn around and park westbound. Also have room to have bicyclists ride through here. So that's the thought. Parking is not, like I said before, officially parking is not allowed on the south side of the carriageway. That's in the books. We're not recommending to change that. We're recommending to enforce that with new signs. Jeremy.
Yep. Sorry. Thank you. So I certainly support allowing people to access this segment for parking. I mean, that's how it's been for a number of years, and we want to encourage people to use the express bus. Actually, I believe it's the 505 here, which is actually the only express bus that actually still operates as an express bus in Newton. So, you know, ideally, we'd like to encourage and advertise this opportunity to access the bus. As far as the actual parking configuration, I'd like to see it be two-sided. That's how it operated forever. If you need to, you know, turn around to park the right way, there's no parking on the bridge. So you go up to the bridge and you turn around. So that's what I'd like to see, but you know, certainly support the whole concept as well. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. So is it Gulshan do not
Yeah.
do Dan?
Hi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hi.
I see my neighbor Dan there as well. I think we both have the same thoughts. But if you go back to the Arapaho Road area, so we live, me and my husband, RK, we live at 1781 Commonwealth Avenue, that red brick house out there on the right. That's our residence. And what I heard you say was that the plan is to remove the fence and allow traffic to pass through.
No, no, that's not
Okay.
that's not my recommendation. Actually, my recommendation for this block is not to change anything. We don't need to change anything that's what I was saying, that this is already officially a two-way dead end block. And already officially there's no parking allowed on the reservation side. I don't think we have no parking signs posted, but maybe that's the only change that we would be recommending, is to comply with our current regulations and post the no parking signs on the reservation side. If they're not there,
So
continue to
currently
allow
there
parking
is,
on the residential
right.
side.
So there is a no parking sign right in front of Dan's house, which says, Dan, I'll let you speak, but there is a no parking sign which says no parking from 9 to 10 a.m. except holidays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So that's the sign that does exist on Commonwealth Avenue, behind the fence, beyond the fence.
Okay, so that's on the residential side,
Yeah,
not on the reservation side.
no, on the, yeah, residential
Okay,
side.
so we're not recommending to change anything.
Okay,
Except
perfect.
I guess my question is, are there any signs posted on the reservation side that say no parking this side?
No, I haven't seen any.
So that's probably the only change that we would
Okay,
make, is
perfect.
to put a sign that says no parking this side.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Downs, did you want to speak now or wait till a little bit later?
I just have a clarifying question, Chair. Your intent in these changes is to allow parking on basically the north side of the carriageway, to not allow parking on the south side of the carriageway, to legalize what is currently happening, and to allow people to access that parking by making it two-way. Is that correct?
Not to legalize, I'm not saying to legalize what's currently happening. I'm saying to
Well, I mean, in
legalize what's
terms of
currently in the books.
how do you act? So this stretch in front of us
This stretch in front of
on
us.
screen, you cannot access any of those parking spaces without going down that road the wrong direction. You can leave them
Right.
the right direction, but you can't get there unless you're driving
That's-
against
Yep.
what's technically a one-way road. So you're making it two-way to allow people to legally go park there.
Yes, that's the
But
only reason
only
that
on
we
the
adopted
north
this
side,
item.
not against the parkland.
Yes, You got it.
That's what I
That's-
wanted to clarify for myself, because we got into a lot of technicalities and I wasn't sure people were clear
Yeah,
on what the object was. So where there is parking allowed on the residential side, you would continue to allow it and make it legal to get there. And where it is not allowed, it would remain not allowed.
yes.
Okay,
Where it's not allowed on the books, we would be posting it on the reservation. So all these cars that you see that are parked here,
right.
or however many cars are parked on that south side, on the reservation side, they would not be allowed to park there. We would have the no parking signs. This is where the bikes are supposed to be.
And I guess on the Arapahoe,
Arapahoe, we don't need to change anything on the books.
so it would remain no parking on south side as well as north side? Is that how
No,
I
no,
understand that?
no.
Okay, that's what I'm
We're
not
not making
understanding.
any change to the parking on the residential side, the north side. We're
Yeah,
we're being consistent with what's already on the books, not making any change to what's on the books on the reservation side, but posting the no parking this side signs.
okay, it currently has no parking. I can read the sign here in Google Maps, except Sundays and holidays
So that's
on
not
the residential side.
on the okay, so no change to, and we're not recommending to change anything on the residential side.
Okay,
Yeah, this is what this slide was.
all right.
Michael,
I just wanted to clarify exactly what we're considering here. I would support both of those items, but I just wanted to make sure I was really clear on what we were deciding. Thank you.
Yeah. Jane, answer.
Yeah, I think I'm also in agreement with you. I just wanted to point out that I would, if I think the question came up about whether you should put no parking signs up there on that south side, and I would support putting no parking signs up there. Just because we really do not, that's where there's the fence there at the end of the bridge. So if a bicyclist is coming eastbound, they have to either go in between the two fences, but you've got the green stripes there. So you really need to keep that area free so bicyclists can either go through the opening between the fences, or they've got a foot or two. I have a photo that I'm looking up right now of when they were putting down the stripes.
Yeah.
They really need to have that space.
So I think we're all saying the same thing. I think I didn't
Yeah.
do a great job sort of describing this, but this is the slide that it says on the books right now that we're not changing. It says that parking is prohibited on the carriageway on the south side, the entire length. So it's just that even though it's on the books, we don't have the signs in these two places, and we would like to post them.
And I would agree. I think it's important to post them, especially right there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dan Lewis.
Yes, I'm Dan Lewis. I'm at 1785 Commonwealth Ave. One question I have. So regarding implementing two-way traffic, what does that entail? Meaning, do you paint stripes on the road?
I don't think that there's going to be any stripe on the road, and it's not something the traffic council we don't vote on line painting. We just vote on changes to the regulations, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any intention to paint any lines in the road. I think the only thing that we would see change in the field are these new signs that would be posted on the reservation side that say no parking this side.
So
Right.
on the reservation side, that's where the two-way bike lane is now,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
And I guess,
So
and I maybe I should correct myself. Mr. Corey said earlier that there's a sign here that says "Do not enter." So that would be removed.
Yep.
Because you would be legally able to enter.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But you know, the two-way bike lane implies no parking. How can you park in a bike lane? So putting up the signs would make a lot of sense. It would just reinforce that fact.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly right.
Yep, okay, that's fine. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mitch?
Yeah, I think the question maybe has been answered, but this contra bike lane, and then you're adding two-way traffic, and the traffic, I guess, when it gets to the bridge, they have to do a U-turn and then park in the other direction. So is there really, I mean, is it really safe for all this two-way bike lane to work, or is that something that bicyclists face all the time and they'll be careful?
So it's
Isaac,
not-
go ahead.
so it's not a two-way cycle track stripe the entire carriageway. There are short sections of contraflow lanes, like single lanes, like just for eastbound bicyclists, within sort of the critical intersection footprints and conflicts. So where there are some of those short markings on east sides of intersections that are now going to be two-way, we will have to remove that little bit of double yellow because that'll contradict otherwise two-way for vehicles. But I think a lot of this intent is understanding that, you know, yes, there are bicyclists going in both directions. There are people that walk within the carriageway. The parking utilization has gone down post-COVID with some of the ridership numbers and less frequent use of the bus. So, and also just maneuvering. I understand maybe the bridge opens up some area of maneuvering, but we're also thinking about some of the folks that park all the way at the end near the wooden barriers. So it's just being mindful of some of the existing actions that are going on right now and clearing up some of the signage markings and language on the books.
I mean,
Thank you,
I
Isaac.
know, Isaac, what you're saying is, you know, with an existing right of way and arrangement, but is a sort of a longer term solution to actually not have it two ways and have cars being able to come in and access so that you don't have this added lane confusion. I'm not saying we do that now, but is that sort of an ultimate resolution of the
I
safety
don't think
issue?
so. You know, I mean, we need, I mean, it's required to be two-way between Arapahoe and Windermere. There's a driveway there. So it has to
Right.
be two-way. Otherwise, there's no way to get to the driveway, right?
I'm thinking more of the Rose Street, well,
Mhm.
you know, where the bus parking is.
Well,
does-
it also needs to be two-way. Otherwise, there's no legal way to get to the spaces, right?
Right, it has to be two-way just because of the blockages that are on the east sides of those blocks. If those blockages weren't there, then this really wouldn't be an issue.
That's what I'm asking, is a longer term solution that some of the, you know, maybe that blockage opens up, but you know, again, that probably creates other problems.
Yeah, that wasn't a thought that we had, at least from
Okay.
DPW's perspective.
Okay,
I mean, I think that this was docketed just to make basically what's going on currently.
yeah, legal, I understand.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. Jeremy?
Yep. Thanks, David. Can you go back to the Rose Street photo again? Perfect. Okay. So basically the way that this operated for many years is, like everyone was saying, you can't get all the way across the bridge. You know, there's a blockage there. So the way this essentially operates is you turn in, you know, towards where the cars are, and it essentially operates as like a dead end street. So, you know, you can turn around at the end, although actually now I'm thinking about it, if it's two-way, then maybe your car should be facing the other way and then you turn around when you leave. But regardless, that's the way it operates. It's a very, you know, low volume. I mean, people would park their cars in the morning and then can get them later. So as far as the parking on both sides, you know, that's, you know, again, there's plenty of dead end streets in Newton and, in the world I can think of where you have parking on both sides and some room at the end for turning around and, it's low volume. I measured it on Google Maps just now. I think it's about 40 feet. It's pretty wide. Again, I think for a low volume street, you can have parking on both sides. People, entering and exiting in the middle lane, bikes going in either direction. It seems pretty reasonable to me. As far as, what's on the ground now with the yellow paint, obviously that would be removed. And again, it would just operate like any other two-way road. So it seems any other, two-way cul-de-sac, I guess. So it seems fine to me to go back to, the way it was before, in my mind. But if people really don't want to have parking on both sides, maybe we can think about some other compromise at a future meeting, some kind of, transition zone to make sure that it works correctly for bikes. So that's my take on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I mean, again, I think that we should have parking on one side. If we do want to vote to allow parking on both sides, we have to vote to change this regulation right here, which prohibits parking on the carriageway on the south side the entire length. We'd have to make another exception, which I don't hear, I'm not sure that we want to do that. Yeah, so the next hand is RK. If you could just say your name and your address for the record, please. And it would take a couple seconds to unmute. You got it.
Hi, my name is Rajesh Khanna, and I'm Gulshan Nirani's husband. I'm actually a little concerned about the row street that you actually have pictured here. And I'm trying to understand how even a two-way lane wouldn't that negate the bike lane altogether?
So
Go ahead, Isaac.
it negates specifically a contraflow bike lane, but that doesn't prohibit bikes from traveling within the roadway footprint, especially if it's just sort of your classic two-way roadway.
Right, so we would still be, I guess in this case, if it's a two-way segment, bicycles are allowed. It's not, I guess it's not officially a contraflow lane. It's just a, eastbound, flow on the carriageway on a two-way segment.
Right. And this is just a short block. These are sort of two unique roadway sections.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe that answered your question. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to approve the language of, it would be TPR 924. This is the language shown on slide 35. And so that's my motion for TC 224. Jeremy, did you have a last comment?
Yeah, I just want to point out that I think it's Robin Hood Street, not road, in your draft language.
Isaac, are you able to quickly check that? Let's see.
Yeah, and just while I'm talking and Isaac is looking things up,
sure.
I think we should probably, like I said, I know it's probably less utilized than it was before COVID, but if we start to see things fill up, maybe we can talk about the two-sided parking again. But yeah, for now, let's just fix the typo and
it is
move
Robin
on.
Hood Street. Hood Street.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so I'll make that motion to approve with the one edit, changing Robin Hood Road to Robin Hood Street. And any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Sergeant Wade. Sergeant Wade,
He's probably unmuting.
I had to mute myself. I have a cough right now that you don't want to hear. Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
I
Oh.
have to leave. Sorry, everyone.
Okay, that's
Good
approved
night.
5-0, TPI 924.
Thank you. So our next item is TC 2323. This is Jason Sobel, Director of Transportation Operations, and Joshua Ostroff, Director of Transportation Planning, requesting to update the traffic and parking regulations in order to allow non-motorized vehicles, bicycles, to legally travel southbound on the one-way northbound block of Brookside Avenue between Watertown Street and Albemarle Road. So this item we heard in June 15th, 2023. We held it as a long-term trial, and now I put this on the agenda to revisit it. Let's run through the presentation. Here is the block that we're talking about. This is a two-way section of Brookside, but then it becomes a one-way in this area right here. So it's this one block that we're talking about. I took several photos a week or two ago of the conditions on the street. Here's the photo. So after we heard this item and held it for a trial, the vote was to allow bicycles to travel southbound on a one-way segment. So after the trial was approved, we were able to post this sign. There was already the sign that said do not enter one way. And then after the trial, we put this sign here that said accept bicycles. So we were effectively encouraging bicycles to travel on this route southbound on a one-way northbound street. I think at the time, the idea was to create a route all the way down, from Watertown Street or from Craft Street, all the way down to Washington Street. And we thought that this would be an appropriate route to take. So I want to, think about that again. Notice that we did paint this little segment as a contraflow bike lane. So it's partially been implemented or partially been painted, but we do see that cars are already parking in this bike lane. Here's a view looking to the north toward NECP. You see the no parking sign. So parking is allowed on the east side and on much of the west side, except there's no parking sign from here to the traffic signal. But cars are, the day that I looked, there were 4 cars that were parked beyond the no parking sign. So this is basically what the view would be for bicyclists riding southbound. You see, it's pretty narrow. There's a lot of cars there, and cars would be coming toward you. The bicyclist would be, sort of coming head on to where a vehicle would be traveling in the opposite direction. There were 31 cars that were parked on this one block. It became more, there was already cars that parked there previously, but after NECP opened, we've seen a notable increase in parking on that block. So 31 cars were parked there. I don't even think there's 31 legal spaces on that block. So very heavily parked up. So my recommendation is to think about ending that trial, not having a sign that encourages bicyclists to travel in the opposite direction of the flow of traffic, and instead to travel between Watertown Street to Washington Street on some other route, like maybe down Albemarle to Eddy Street, or maybe down Watertown Street to, for example, Walker Street. We're not really recommending any of these, but we are recommending to NAN to take no action on the trial that we previously approved. The whole reason is to be able to remove that sign. We want to remove that sign that says accept bicycles. So that is my presentation for this item. And I'm going to open it up for comments. Jesse, Corey?
So I want to say that I won't even support this because because it's dangerous for a bicycle to make a left turn from Brookside Avenue onto Washington Street, since there is not a light, and cars on Washington Street, which is a main road, which has 2 lanes in both directions, seem to travel fast. So instead, I prefer to see a contraflow bike lane added on Page Road between Walker Street and Lowell Avenue, so that bikes can actually take that route, and then either take Lowell Avenue or Walnut Street to get to Washington Street in order to make it safer.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think that we're not coming up with real alternatives that we're going to be voting on right now. But all we really wanted to do was just remove that one sign for now, and then move on with some other ideas probably later on. Thank you, Jesse. Any other comments? I don't see any. So would anyone like to make a motion to NAM?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so Isaac has made the motion to NAM, TC 2323. So if this is approved, then immediately, even probably tomorrow or Monday, that one sign that says accept bicycles could be removed. There's also, I think, 1 or 2 other sort of directional signs that instruct bicyclists to travel down that short block of Watertown Street to get to Brookside. So that other sign could also be removed if we NAM the trial. Any last comments before we vote? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Sergeant Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
and Counselor Downs is not present. So Counselor Downs not voting. That's voted no action necessary, 4-0.
Okay. And our last item then is TC 324. Isaac Prezant, City Transportation Engineer, requesting to modify the parking regulations on Lowell Avenue near the intersection of Austin Street to reflect recent construction at the intersection. Here's the location right at Austin Street at Lowell. Traffic calming was recently put in this intersection. Here's the construction plan that shows sort of some rumble strips and a little island that were constructed here. And here's a view you can sort of see in the distance the new traffic calming that was put in. So this we only docketed it because after the traffic calming was installed, we realized that we need to slightly change where the parking is. We need to create no parking closer to the intersection because of the traffic calming that was installed. So there's a lot of technical language. We're sort of removing all of the regulations on Lowell Avenue and adding right back in basically the same regulations with these 2 exceptions that I highlighted, where we're now creating a new no parking zone on the books on the east side near the traffic calming, and then also on the west side. So that is the recommendation, and we could vote to approve that. Jesse, Corey?
I know that this is not on the agenda tonight, but there were also changes to the no parking signs near Hall Street. And so I suggest that Isaac docket an item for a different meeting to change the TPR in terms of what was recently redone at Hall Street.
Okay. We will take a look at that, Jesse. Thank you. I'll make a note. Mitch.
So I have no objection to this, but I would like to ask about How many spaces would this affect? And is there any evidence that people actually park there currently? Or before the traffic calming went into effect, or maybe it's in effect now?
I don't know. Isaac, do you have a response to that question? I think that as part of the traffic calming, that we might have installed no parking signs, but we just want to make sure that they're on the books.
Yeah, that's mostly the case. I don't know that a car parked there. Maybe maybe it was kind of close, but our sign crew just noticed conflicting signs, so we just want to make sure to get it all sorted.
And Isaac and David, so these not the side of the park, but any houses involved in that side, they were notified of this potential change or not?
I don't think we sent out a notification for this item.
And you
I
don't,
think that we already have the no parking sign installed, and I think on the other side, this side abutting the Elmwood Park is really tiger permit parking. This whole stretch, it's very lightly used right now by the high school students. So we're just restricting a little bit of that tiger permit parking. I don't think people are parking there now very much. In the future, they wouldn't be able to.
Right.
but there is a residence or two affected on the other side or not?
There's probably this house
Yeah,
that they wouldn't be parking there anyway because there's a no parking sign and they would be parking in the middle of the travel way.
Yeah.
So, they are eligible to have a permit to park just one house down.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, seeing no other comments, I would like to make a motion to approve the language of TPR 925 to make the changes shown on these slides and to restrict parking a little bit on both sides near the intersection of Austin Street. Any last comments? Okay, Danielle, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kosis,
Aye.
Mr. Prezant,
Aye.
Sergeant Wade,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved 4-0. Counselor Downs not voting, TPR 925.
Okay, thank you all. That concludes the business. Our next traffic council meeting will be on February 15th. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Good
Thank
night.
I'll see you in 4 weeks, but I'll actually see you in 3 weeks from yesterday.
Very good, Jesse. Have a good night.